Good morning, ladies. So today our learning target is I can make inferences about a biographical text and identify relevant details to support them. So remember that a biographical text is a text about someone's life, and this is a biography, so we know that it wasn't written by Maya Lin, it was written by someone else about her life. If this was written by Maya Lin, it would be an autobiography. And if you recall, Maya Lin, we got the books from Scholastic that Miss Babs organized in our last kind of book giveaway before quarantine. So hopefully you have a little background knowledge with this story. So biography, Maya Lin. Maya Lin was born in 1959 in Ohio and was the daughter of college professors who had moved to the United States from China. Her father was an art professor and her mother taught poetry and literature. Maya always enjoyed the outdoors and was an excellent math student, so she decided to major in architecture and sculpture when she went to Yale University. In 1981, when Maya Lin was 21 years old and an architecture student at Yale, she designed the Vietnam Veterans Memorial as a class project, and then entered in a design competition, beating out submissions of 1,420 other entrants. Her winning proposal for the Washington, D.C. Memorial was a V-shaped wall of black stone, etched with the names of 58,000 soldiers who had been killed in the war. At first, Lin's design was not widely accepted. Some veterans, as well as politicians, didn't care for the design, saying it didn't look like the other memorials in Washington, D.C. Some complained that it was placed so low to the ground that you couldn't see it from a distance. Others felt that the memorial's position on the low slope path meant that the United States was ashamed of the veterans for that war. The Vietnam War had been unpopular with many people for many reasons. Sadly, soldiers who came home from the war were not always welcomed warmly. Sometimes the soldiers themselves were even blamed for the war. But as time passed, more Americans decided that it was right to honor all soldiers who fought bravely for their country. As a result, the decision was made to create the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Since Lin's design was made to create the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, I'm sorry, I can't read reading that. Since Lin's design was so controversial at the time, her name wasn't mentioned at the memorial's dedication service. When the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was completed in 1892, Lin became famous and was asked to work on many other projects, such as the Civil Rights Memorial in Alabama, which honors those who have fought and died in the struggle for equal rights. She also designed sculptures, parks, libraries, and even museums, and received numerous awards for her work. The controversy surrounding the Vietnam Veterans Memorial is no longer an issue, and this meaningful memorial is one of the most visited places in Washington, D.C. Today, her powerful memorial continues to honor the soldiers who willingly gave their lives for others. So before your close read, ladies, what we're going to do now is we are going to preview our questions. Number 1. Why did the people want to build a memorial for Vietnam veterans? Use evidence from the text to support your answer. Number 2. Why didn't people like Lin's design at first? List 3 reasons from the text. So they're giving you your inference here. People didn't like Lin's design at first, and you need to do 3 details to support here instead of just 2. Make an inference. Why did the author write this article? So think author's purpose, PIE. Which part of the text gave you this idea? So here, 3 and 4 kind of go together, ladies. So number 3, you're just making that inference. Okay, so you're either doing persuade, inform, or entertain. And maybe just add on to that a little bit for your inference. And then I need 2 details to support number 3. So think of 3 as R and A and 4 as P and P for your 2 details. Number 5, using your knowledge of cause and effect, why wasn't Lin's name mentioned at the memorial's dedication service? And number 6, what clues from the text show you that Lin became a successful designer after she completed the Vietnam Veterans Memorial? So now it's time to close read. You're going to chunk your text, circle and attempt to define unknown words, underline key information. Remember to focus on information that would help to support your answers because you've already previewed your questions. You're summarizing in the margin and you're identifying any other elements that may be helpful. So today you have some inferences they're asking you to make in regards to author's purpose, relevant details for cause and effect. So keep all of those things in mind as you do your close read. So now it's time to pause the video, to close read and do your questions, and then you can compare and contrast against mine. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to go over my marks and a few of my responses. Again, you are comparing and contrasting your notes against mine. So you're seeing, oh, Miss Egging had similar summary notes to mine, or maybe, oh, I didn't really get that there. Maybe I was kind of off with my comprehension for one of these chunks. This is the time where you're checking your own work. You are not just copying answers. So I'm going to walk you through my close reading marks now. So if we take a look up here at the learning target, I can make inferences. So inferences, background info plus new content to make inferences. Little reminder for that. About biographical text, which we already know is about someone's life. So relevant details are details that make sense. So we're really focusing today on details that make sense to support our inferences, whether they are given or we have to find them out ourselves. So the way that I chunked, as you can see here, is I did a couple paragraphs at a time. So in my first chunk, what I really wanted to identify here was that her family was from China. Okay, both of her parents were professors. They're from China, and she majored in architecture and sculpture when she went to Yale. So a couple things really stick out to me there. Yale University, we know, is a very top prestigious college, so it's impressive alone that she went there. And then she majored in architecture and sculpture, which is super cool. Building design. So especially for a woman in this time period, you go, girlfriend, Myelin. We like that. Okay, so then for my second paragraph, which is included in my first chunk, she designed the Vietnam Memorial as a class project and then entered it in a design competition, beating out submissions, which is maybe other designs, of 1,420 other entrants, which meaning these are other people who submitted theirs. This is very much key information because this design then goes on, as we know, because this is our second read, to be the actual design for the Vietnam Memorial. So extremely impressive. Her winning proposal, which is her winning idea. So she drew out this idea and then it kind of came to be. Etched means carved, engraved. So for my first chunk, I said Maya's family came from China and Mary entered a contest in college and won. So then for our second chunk here, this is all about the negative feedback at first, but then she's accepted. There's different opinions of the Vietnam War. So I think Myelin kind of was working against some of the views of the country at this time as well. And she had a very unique design. So in her mind, she was creating something that had never been done before um, to honor these very special soldiers. And at first, it was not accepted. So when we're talking about this idea of things being controversial, we're talking about people having two very opposite opposing viewpoints of the topic at hand. And in this case, it was her design, right? So some complained that it was a place so low to the ground that you couldn't see it from a distance. Others felt the memorial position slope meant that they were ashamed, and they didn't care for the design, saying that it didn't look like everything else. It didn't kind of go with the flow of the other Washington, D.C. memorials. But we learned that as time passed, Americans realized that it was right to honor these soldiers. Um, the controversy, which is another lesson for another day, with the Vietnam War. Some of the soldiers were not necessarily treated very kindly when they came back, but that was not their fault. That was, people had opposing viewpoints of the war and whether or not it should be fought. So now let's take a look at my last chunk here before we kind of move on. So she became famous and was asked to work on many other projects and then, completed in 1892. Controversy surrounding the Vietnam War Memorial is no longer an issue, and its meaning for memorial is now one of the most visited places in Washington, D.C. We visited it last year when the fifth graders went. Unfortunately, we won't be able to see it this year due to the virus and that trip being canceled, but it really is a beautiful, beautiful sight to see. So I have Maya now is appreciated for her work and has completed other projects. So working with nonfiction text, right, biographical text, that should automatically register to you that we can put that in that nonfiction category. we always need to identify a main idea. So again, I'm sorry about Miss Egging's sloppiness here. I feel like these margins aren't super big and I had to just use whatever space is given to me. I hope that you're doing the same. I have the main idea down here listed. So Maya Lin designed the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and although it started out controversial, it became accepted and opened many doors for Maya Lin. Okay, so hopefully we've also gained a new appreciation of our new books that we got kind of right before school let out. So there's one more thing that I want to kind of talk about before we get into our questions, and it's this idea of cause and effect. So one of our questions really surrounds the cause and effect, kind of talking about the effect that is given is that Maya Lin's name was not mentioned at the memorial dedication service. So what we have to kind of take a peek at here were what were some of those causes. So what I said here was kind of the big inference cause was that Maya Lin's design was so controversial at the time. And then I kind of took it a step deeper and I kind of backed that up with relevant details. And I'm talking about didn't look like the others and it was positioned so low on the ground and at a slope that it may have meant the United States was ashamed of the veterans from that war. And because of that controversy, her name is not originally on it, which is kind of a controversy in itself that the artist who created this dedication and this memorial is nowhere mentioned on the memorial. So now let's take a peek at our questions. And again, ladies, you're not just copying from Miss Egging, you are taking a look at your own. So what I want to do now is let's take a look here at number 1 is straight comprehension, but what I really want to do is talk about number 2, 3, and 4 to start. So number 2, why didn't people like Lynn's design at first? So 3 reasons. So we kind of talked about this on the back a little bit, right? So I said, what I did was they gave us our claim, so I just numbered 1, 2, and 3. So I said, number 1, it didn't look like the other memorials in Washington, D.C. Number 2, it was placed so low on the ground that you couldn't see it from a distance. And number 3, the position on the low sloped path meant the United States was ashamed from the veterans of that war. Okay, so again, similar to kind of the work we did on the back, even though we're going to be revisiting that for question 5, we're going to take a look at some other questions first. So for number 3, make an inference. Why did the author write this article? So we're talking about author's purpose. We have PIE, persuade, inform, or entertain on the side over here. These are the same kind of marks that you should be making on your paper so that when you go back and you answer your questions, you can use this as somewhat of a checklist to make sure that you have all of the elements of your response. So for number 3, the author wrote this article to inform the reader of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. We learned that Maya Lin was in a design competition that led to the actual building of the memorial. We also learned that there were differing opinions of the memorial. So here I talked all about this purpose to inform. Okay, so now for number 4, I need my details to support why I think that. So again, also too, on the left-hand column, I kind of broke up my wrap structure so that I'm handling the first half in number 3 and the second half in number 4. So which part of the text gives you this idea? Which is kind of a clue, or what are the details that support this? I was given this idea because the text states in 1981, when Maya Lin was a 21-year-old architecture student at Yale, she designed the Vietnam Veterans Memorial as a class project and then entered it into a design competition. Also, her design was not widely accepted at first. Okay, number 5. So this is kind of the work that we did on the back, this cause and effect. It gave us our structure, and now we're just trying to kind of find out those causes because that effect part is given. So Lynn's name wasn't mentioned at the memorial dedication service because her design was so controversial at the time. And then I paraphrased my details here because I feel like I was very confident in the work that I did on the back page. So I'm just going to paraphrase my details. But again, here you could have pulled direct quotes from the text to support your response. Some complained that it looked different from the other memorials, while others thought the position and placement was disrespectful. Number 6, what clues, which are details from the text, show you that Lynn became a successful designer after she completed the Vietnam Veterans Memorial? So Lynn became a successful designer after she completed the Vietnam Veterans Memorial because of the recognition and popularity of the memorial and future projects. To support, she also designed sculptures, parks, libraries, and even museums, and received numerous awards for her work. Also, and I did this ... here because remember, I'm not pulling the beginning part, but I am pulling a direct quote from the end, so that's why I have that ... with the quotes. This meaningful memorial, is one of the most visited places in Washington, D.C. All right, ladies, thank you so much. I can't wait to hear your answers at this week's Zoom.